So a couple things that I'm just going to outline for you that you may have noticed, and I think this gets to your question about how these goals are set. So you're going to notice that if you look at your green sheet, you might have said, like, okay, that's weird. Like, actually, sometimes the target for 2009 is the same or maybe even a little bit lower than the actual result for 2008. Why do you think we did that? Why do you think it's not? It's like, okay, we achieved 86% on something last year. The goal should be 97 or something, but it's not. Why?
Because you're not building the same group of people.
Right. We're starting all over again. Starting from the ground up. I mean, I'm sort of like, I think so much about it. I was like, well, in theory, we've learned so much, so maybe we're starting at 20% or something. And maybe we are. But my team and I spent a lot of time talking about this. Let's assume that we're starting with largely a new staff and certainly new core members. So you're just starting these things from the ground up every year. And again, to a goal being meaningful. In my mind, having a goal of 100% is very difficult. And I know that's our student achievement goal, but it's in the average. But goals start to lose meaning when you think, like, really? Like, gunning for 85 or whatever is up there, that is actually doable. And it also can be like, ding, 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 like you're at 70, let's say. Okay, that means like we need to sink some time and energy there. I think when you start to set goals actually too high, they start losing their meaning. Well, they're already at 92, the goal's at 100, who cares? Set the goal where it actually should be. What would actually be concerning to us? It would actually be concerning to me if only 70% of core members felt X. Only X% of students were achieving. Only X% of talent. Like, set the goal where it actually is alarming to you if it dips below. And then a lot of our goals are perceptions-based, and I want to put that out there. And I actually want to ask, why do you think that is? And I think it's very appropriate. But so, I think sometimes staff would be like, but like, gosh, it's just like, I can't control how people feel. And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, you can. And actually part of being a leader and being people's manager is actually to affect just that. So why is this important? Because I just want to name it, because I think it's something that staff out of a good place have been, I think, maybe overwhelming, maybe frustrated by. I don't know. Why is it okay that a lot of the goals are perceptions-based? It's how a core member feels, how they're perceiving something. Yeah?
I was just going to say, because how a person feels about their job or how they feel about walking in somewhere has a direct connection of the output they do, what they're willing to change. It directly affects what they're willing to do for that in the role.
Absolutely. Right. A couple more people.
Well, I was just saying, like, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, when you don't feel safe, or you don't feel welcome, or you have perceived threat, I'm studying the neuroscience of education a little bit, so like your amygdala activates and your emotional center of your brain is like overexcited and you can't be productive because you literally go into fight or flight.
Interesting. Certainly did not know all of that. Now I'm armed even more to make the case. I see a lot of answers. We're going to talk about culture in a second, so I want to move us on because we're going to have an opportunity to talk about these other things. But it sounds like we get that right. Actually, I would like to have, so far I think all of us have talked about cultural stuff. What about the perceptions of how effective you are? So, some of the goals are like, the core member is going to be X. My CMA is helpful in my development. My CS is, my LS is helpful in my development. Why is that important? Could you go there?
I think it's sort of a self-fulfilling cycle. I mean, somebody sort of spoke to that if you feel successful going in, then you're going to be more successful. And if core members see me as being helpful in their development, the same actions I take might be perceived as more helpful if they already see me as being helpful, if that makes sense. And it's going to kind of build on what they already believe.
Yeah.
And I think, can I have one more thing?
Yeah.
I think for us, a lot of us are used to being very data-driven in our goals. We're used to really taking tests and looking at scores, and that's how we sort of approach our goals. So acknowledging that a lot of goals are perception-based helps us change our thinking and helps us really start to consider, I have to take both of these into consideration as I do my work.
And if you can start to think of yourself as manager, as leader, in the role of that, the people that work for you, work with you, they don't work for you. It's a different dynamic. They're not your employees. And I do think that's important, right? It is a different dynamic. But the way they feel about your leadership is hugely important in how much you will get out of it. Their performance, really is going to be a correlate to the way that you're performing. Also, too, let me be clear. We will have other measures of measuring your effectiveness. In fact, your SE would come in and observe you and give you feedback. There's things you're doing well. There's things you're, need to improve on. What we found, though, is that, core member perception up here is, not terribly off. It is an indicator of your actual performance. If we could dare say, okay, we're like the objective measure, which is not, but if we could even say that, typically the core member's data about you matches what we also see. So when core members say lesson planning clinics are not effective, because we ask all these sub-questions to help you figure out. If they rated me as X, and I'm a CMA, I probably want to know how do they think my lesson plan clinics are going, how do they think my observation debrief cycle conversations are going, etc. When core members rate those things a certain way, they rate them strong, typically what we see is, yeah, you are making them strong. Like core members are not just like making stuff up, and they're not being punitive. They are being honest, more honest than I think we think they are. Aaron, real quick.
Yeah, I think even when that doesn't match up, the degree to which a person perceives something as being helpful is how much they buy into it. So like in CS&L on sessions, if they don't see those sessions as being helpful, when we teach them something new, they're not going to go use it. Or in an observation debrief, if they don't see their CMA or the observation debrief cycle as being helpful, that those next steps that we give them, they're not going to go use them. They're not going to get better. They're not going to be able to improve their own practice for our kids.
Right. So I'm going to give you some time in your give you some time in your table groups, just about 5 minutes to discuss two things. So one, how do you see these measures of success? I would say the interim measures as well. Also too, I feel like measures of success, goals, like kind of all the same thing. Right? I mean, they're not like measures of success are the actual like questions, like my CMA couple, the goals would be the target associated with it. I tend to use the word interchangeably. When you use measures of success, you know what we're talking about. Okay. So how do you see it shaping your work? And how do you see these measures of success shaping the work of your manager or even the IMT? 5 minutes to discuss, and then it's going to